Good morning. Well, it's morning somewhere. Actually, it's evening. It's going on to 9 p.m. in the evening. And just as my last plant hike was rained out, I have a storytelling, fire circle, and night hike planned for today. And the show does go on. The show absolutely must go on. So I got my fire, got my s'more materials, which works out well because the best thing you can do with little kinders, little children, is mix sharp sticks and fire. We're not in the land of bubble wrapping kids here at the Swift. Danger. No, actually, it's quite safe. I've never injured anybody with sharp sticks and fire. I was going to say that didn't deserve it, but I'm not going to add that negativity into this. And so we're at the fire circle, and I've got some stuff. I'd like to have, a fresh approach with updated stories, although many are hundreds of years old. I usually don't have the same crowd, and so this is one of the easiest programs for me to do because I let this area guide what I talk about. The fire circle. And I've got the benches for cardinal positions. I have, and I shall show you, right here, colored deer skulls, which these met their demise at the hands of my arrows. I've got a white one here in the north, and then you're just going to have to trust me if you can't see them. At the east, yellow, little 4-point buck. At the south, red, which I'm replacing the red deer skull to keep an evenness with. I replaced a wild boar, Russian boar, that I nailed with a bow. Actually, a 40-pound recurve bear, and it works. Red there at the south, and then black. You did not see that. A black bull skull in the west. And so those are the colors of the medicine wheel. Why do I have a black bull skull? Well, got the hide rolled up, rawhide form in my canoe. And blending Native American stuff with European, because we were all tribal at one point, let's face it. Whether or not you're in Asia or Africa or Philadelphia, we were tribal. Some people still are to some degree. And the bovine was a respected animal in Europe. Celtic, along with other societies, powerful beast. And so I do have a black bull over there. Go on to the colors, of course, which you've heard before, but it never hurts to reinforce stuff. Yellow, east, red, south, black, west, as I just stated. What am I doing? I'm so confused. I'm sorry. Already talked about the colors. Plants. Sweet grass in the north. You probably can't see it, but I've got a medicine bundle hung from the top of my spherical roof with sweet grass in the north, care of Mother Earth, tobacco up there, Hopi ceremonial tobacco that grew next to my sweetgrass plant, cedar, the south, and then we've got sage, the plant of wisdom, in the west. We become sages because seasonality also goes along with this great circle of existence. Winter, spring, summer, fall, which also kind of goes along with the colors here. It goes along with our life. We are born in the north. Go north. A little older in the east, even older still. Maybe the season, the fieriness of adolescence and 20s, 30ish, which I passed. Then it goes on to ours. Larry, Roberto, the other people. In my kind of generation, broadly speaking, we're sages. That's what we should gain in our older years. Wisdom, sage, kind of the things going towards the end in the north and starting over again. Circular. I find it interesting The colors of the medicine wheel: white, yellow, red, black, in no particular order, because there's no start on a circle, could, in a broad sense, represent the people. All the people. White, yellow, broad sense, red, black. And so, not only do we have our existence in our own life on the circle, the existence of the world, all the people are included. Unless there's purple people and green people out there. And so we have just discussed the mysteries of the medicine wheel. And I'm sure that corresponds to certain ideas in other lands besides North America. And so we're all upon this great circle. I can draw so many conclusions and stories, just from this area. The fire in the center going out. I've got the fire, sand, a line of 24 rocks. If you're runists, that makes some sense. Another little band of safety here of sand, and then the shredded bark. And then the people, and then the great beyond. Up here I've got rings on here. On seven rings. Ooh. A lot of numbers can go onto this, so you can branch out. And these numbers are not inclusive to certain regions. Every continent that had people on it, thought and pondered, because that's what, life is about, pondering and then drawing conclusions and bringing people in. The number 7, 5 coasts, 4 benches, 4 cardinal directions. Such is life. I get into a lot of firsts here. The first stories, the first fire, the first stone arrowhead. Now I'll yank this out. My stuff, a bow, ash, which goes along with the story of the first bow in existence. The first people. And this goes on the east coast of North America, the Iroquois Confederation. And it just so happened, and I don't have a javelin here, a throwing sticky pointy thing, not fully prepared, and the camera is oriented so it's not facing like the tangle over there. So we're going to have to simulate. And let's picture that this is long. This is a throwing stabbing weapon, predating bows. We're not going to discuss atlatls because it doesn't go along with this story. But the people back then, they hunted, by just throwing stuff. And let's assume that they had flint arrowheads like this. There was a village. And this is beautiful when I'm telling stories. I've got a little village here, small family-sized village. The debris hut right there, a wiki up times 10 just because it's thicker, a lot of layers. But there was this time when there wasn't any game, because there's this great bear that used to just encircle the encampment of people, capturing all the food that people would eat, basically starving them out for some unknown reason. And the people would go out, and all they'd see are the bear tracks encircling the village, and no game. There was nothing to hunt. They were able to forage, for greens and roots and nuts and berries and such, but they needed to supplement their appetites, their diets with meat. Great source of protein and fat. And so they volunteered this hunter. I like to do it that way. I had my own little twist. They volunteered this hunter to go out and kill that bear, end that bear's existence, end his reign of terror, so we can again hunt and have food to eat. I love it. It's raining. We're all seasoned people here. And so that hunter, he followed the tracks around the circle. That bear just bringing down all the game as he's encircling the camp, and the animals would try to get near him, grabbing and taking, not being very generous. But then he noticed that along that circle, the tracks started veering off. Followed the tracks. He followed it through forests. He followed it over mountains. He followed it across streams, until he got to an area that was highly tangled with grapevines and little ash saplings. really miserable to pass through. Well, as he was pushing stuff away and forcing himself through there, he heard this like grumbling. And it was so thick he didn't see him until he was right above him. There was that great bear laying there sleeping. Well, he didn't know what to do because his javelin was sticking in things. It was brushy. A long throwing device just isn't going to work that well. And so as he was backing away, it caught. It caught on a grapevine. And he's backing and backing, and that grapevine was under great tension and bending an ash sapling that it was wound in. And when he turned to run, he let go of his javelin, and it shot away. Well, the hunter ran, and he ran, but he noticed that nothing was chasing him. And so he meekly and carefully and quietly crept back. And there was the bear laying there with this javelin through him that he didn't throw. It had caught in the grapevines, stressed by the ash sapling, and that had thrown it. Well, he looked at this and thought about it and was so excited he didn't even bother to like carve any meat off this bear. He ran back to his village. And he explained what happened. And he found an ash sapling with a grapevine on it and took his javelin and pulled it back and let go. And it shot. Shot like an arrow, a veritable arrow. And so they got together. They analyzed the system, this great way of motivation of a projectile. And because that grapevine was in an ash, they took an ash sapling and worked it down into a bow-like structure, a lot shorter than a tree and a grapevine, a beautiful portable device. I'm afraid, oh, it does work. This is a sinew bowstring. And from there, they developed the first bow, and that is the way it happened. And I also talk about, actually my first story is always the story of the white calf buffalo woman. And medicine pouch, I'm not going to tell it because there are certain stories that I feel I shouldn't tell over the medium of YouTube, just throwing it out there. I have some latitude here. I give credit to the people who first told the story, Lakota, with the white calf buffalo woman. I've got my version. I was scrambling around of a bundle. And I actually do not have a pipestone pipe. I have a pipe that was made by a Lakota gentleman who I gave a bow for, and he traded me a pipe. It's kind of dark, so I'm not going to show it. And I also have the sage bundle that goes along with it, where I'm going to not claim that this is a story, but how it worked is there was no game. I'm going to shorten it, so I apologize to Lakota people. There was no game, so two men went out to figure out what was happening. Oh, look at me, I'm actually kind of telling it. And they're traveling a great distance, and there's hills. And they decided they were going to go up on top of this hill, this rise, and look around because it gives them a greater vantage point. They're looking out, probably towards the west. Excuse me if that's not the direction. And they see this figure coming toward them. And it was an interesting kind of deal because the figure didn't look like he or she was walking, more like floating. Well, they stood there as this figure was coming toward them. And it was a beautiful woman. And the one gentleman, a beautiful woman, what he was thinking, bolt of lightning came down here and turned him into dust, because he did not have pure intentions. The other gentleman understood that this was something special, something very meaningful, and so he did not have those intentions in his mind. And the woman, wearing beautiful white buffalo robe, buffalo skin clothing, approached him and said, "I understand that your people are having a difficult time. What I want you to do is I want you to go back to to your village, and I want you to tell the people that when I come to you in some days, I believe it's 3, that I'm going to give you something. I'm going to give you something that will help you survive, help you to live. What I need you to do is build a lodge, but I want you to have the opening facing the west. I want you to have an earthen altar, and I want you to prepare for my coming. And he did that. He went back, explained to the people, what is going on, what is going to happen, and they followed her directions. And they built the lodge with the opening facing the west, built the earthen lodge, and because they did this, they saw her approaching. She came into the village, and she said, I understand that you're having a hard time, a difficult time living. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you something and give you an instruction that allow you to follow the red road, the proper way of living. Sharing, not taking anything more than you need, being in harmony with one another and the land. And she brought out this bundle. This is actually a quiver, but I'm using it for a bundle. She brought out sage. And she explained the meaning and the use of sage for purification and giving a good peace to an area, a good harmony, bringing your minds and your spirits and your bodies to that place which is proper. And then she brought out a pipe. And again, you're going to have to simulate this because my pipestone pipe is somewhere else. I use this because this was actually given to me by one of the first people. And she explained that the red of the pipestone signifies the blood and the bones and the meat of all the animals that give you life. Respect. The wooden pipe stem represents the plants that you use in everyday life, whether it's tools, whether it's food, whether it's shelter, anything and everything. It's all related. The smoke, the sacred breath flows through this and then is expelled, carries your prayers and your thoughts to the Creator. And when you do this, I'm taking a huge chance here because these stories are sacred to people, and I'm telling them in the utmost respect. So please understand this. That you give thanks to the north. You give thanks to the east. My intentions are good. You give thanks, gratitude towards the south and to the west. You give gratitude to Mother Earth. You give gratitude to the sky. And she explained further that I'm going to give these to you. And in this way of understanding the use of sage, and I'm going to expand upon this, I'm going to take great liberties, so please understand my intentions are good. The other plants of the 4 medicines, that this will give you the ability to understand and to live in a way that you are going to be good to others. You are going to help others. You're going to share with others. You're going to live within this realm of ours in a proper way, a balanced way. And when you understand this and practice this and follow the good red road, you will have what you need. And there we go. There's other stories of first. There's the raccoons are going ballistic up there. They're so polite, but yet they sound like monsters. And they fascinate me because they're like miniature bears. They really are. You look at the skull of the raccoon, like I talked about another one, and the skull of the bear, they're the same. And they move like little bears. They're clever like bears. I'm going to add that, like, Grandfather Bear being so wise, raccoons are wise too. They can find the unseen, the roots. This root does this root does that, this root does this. And it allows us to learn from them. Well, I would yap a bit. The fire, this has been just really lovely. You notice I'm in my vest and my hat, and July something, it's in the 20s, I'm pretty sure. 26th maybe, 27th, who cares? It's darn near about 50, and it's been raining, and it's been blustery, you know, and I fully expected nobody to show up today, but I enjoy this so much. This gives me so much joy to just be in my fire circle around a nice coaly fire, talking. And again, I didn't have any people here, but I had you. Now, extra credit. Interesting things have happened to this fire circle. Interesting things abound in this area. I really feel fortunate. In some ways, a person could accuse me of trying to become a Native American. You know how some people try to glom onto other cultures. But I'm fortunate because the Odawas that live in this area really seem to understand, the ones that know me and the ones that visit and I talk to and stuff. I understand it. I'm coming from a good place. And as I explained to them as well as other people down here, is that I'm more of a tribally based person. I'm 3/4 European, 1/4 this place. But I don't throw away my Europeanness because we all come from a place of tribalism. We lived probably in similar dwellings. We had similar uses of fire. We had bows. We had arrows. We had atlatls. We did the same thing. We understood plants. We understood hunting. We understood not taking more than you need. So there's a commonality here without trying to become something else. I am me. Hear me roar. Okay, enough silliness. I remember there was a group of women, and this was like my second year I was here, well over 20 years ago. A group of women, and they were staying at the Birchwood Inn up here, a motel that's so convenient. It's about a mile maybe away. And they were spending a week here. They were from Massachusetts. And I remember they pulled in, didn't know what was going on, and that one woman had an injured back. And her sisters, they were all sisters, one of them said, well, we're not going to walk because my sister has an injured back. And I know the trails are really well laid out and they're level. You know, if you can walk to your car, you could walk to the beach. So I told them, I'm not letting you leave. You are going to walk to the beach on the beach trail, and you are going to enjoy yourself, and you are not going to get out of here before you walk. Well, they did. They took my advice, my well-meaning advice. And it turned out that all four of them, from the moment we were open to the moment we were closed after sunset, they spent their entire vacation here. This is a special area. It's special to the people that visit. It's very special and very important to the Native community. The one woman who was really taken with the place would visit here every year. About 10 years ago, about 10 years ago, she stopped coming. And then soon after, in years passed by, there was an older gentleman, her age, it didn't connect with me, and then a younger man. They were clutching a box, and they were looking at the map. And I have to check. I have no idea what people are doing. People can do anything here, weird things. Believe me, I'm not going to talk about those stories of catching people doing people-y things. I said, looks like you two are on a mission, because I was going to find out what they were up to. That's what I do. And they said, well, my wife, the older gentleman said, used to love coming here every year, and she just died of some form of cancer. I forgot which one. And she wanted her remains to be here. And so they didn't know if they asked me if I would say yes. And this is not the first time. I've actually had quite a few people deposited here over the years, which I take as an extreme compliment. Well, they did their deed. They laid her to rest down at the beach next to this rock that she used to like to sit on. Very sweet sentiment. And I had one of these fire circle programs that night. It was a nice night that actually brought people here. So I'm roaming the circle, talking to people, telling a story of whatever, raven and octopus, who knows. And these two women come strolling in late. They were in the bag. They were hammered. And they come in, they interrupt my story. It's like walking in front of the formation, you know. Some things you don't do. And they plunk themselves right down in this bench. And they said, "Are there like spooks here?" And I was like, "Excuse me. For one thing, you're interrupting me. I don't take any guff. And the second thing, that is beyond the pay grade of this storytelling program. So I'm not going to discuss it." Continuing to tell my story, and again they spoke up. "Have you ever seen anything unusual here?" And I'm gonna dash over here and make a sound. They interrupted me twice, and then the third time they interrupted me, that's my workshop, that's the pole barn. There was a sound even louder than that. They interrupted me the third time, and it was as if somebody standing right there hit that pole barn with a rock. And everyone jumped up because it freaked them out. It's like they hit right there, but there's nothing there. And the two women, were like, "What's that?" And the only thing that in my mind that I was able to say was, "That is something that you asked about that I'm not going to talk about." There was no other explanation. I think I mentioned in another video, you know, why not? Let's talk about some spooky stuff. I like spooky stuff. Behind you, right there, the brushy area, pole barn workshop, house up there, probably about 60 yards away. About this time of night, I can still see. It's all right. Walking back after working hard, maybe on bows, I don't know. This was about 20 years ago. And as I'm crossing right there, halfway between the house and the pole barn, this big black thing comes out of the brush and charges me. I'm going to surprise you here because there are big black things roaming these forests. This big black thing, I didn't know what the heck it was, and it had glowing red eyes. And so I knew two things. The first thing was, this thing means me ill, and the second thing is, I got to get the heck out of here. And I made it to the porch of the house in like 3 steps. Choo! This thing made no sound as it was running at me. Okay, yeah. Stone cold sober. And pretty much awake because like I was working in the pole barn. And it was light enough to get a clear view of this thing. Well, a while later, years later, again maybe 10 years, maybe 8 years, I had the rope on at this time, going down the beach trail past the pond. And as I'm going down the beach trail past the pond, the same creature comes, big, you know, bigger than a Rottweiler, jet black, glowy eyes, comes out from where the pond is, a short trail. I mean, it's the pond and then a 20-foot trail. And it came out from there, and it's running alongside of me. Weird. It's running alongside of me, close enough for me to touch. So it's not one of those situations where you see a shadow when you're driving and then your brain creates this image in your head and then it's like, oh, there was an animal there was Bigfoot, whatever. This thing was right next to me. Ran along for a distance and then made a hard right, and the key word is ran into the swamp and disappeared. It went out of view before it should have been out of view. Second time. Now, I feel confident in mentioning this because this year I have been in the great unknown area. I've been pulling marsh thistle in areas where it's easy to walk, but there's about a third of this place that's really off limits just because it's difficult to go through. It's like the kind of watery muck that you sink in, and it's thick, like that one hunter with the lance. And when I was back there one afternoon, a bird watcher, you know, a rational person, a bird watcher, an extreme type A personality in a good way because they have to memorize the sounds of birds. They are observers. They are practice observers. They can tell the difference between a Canada warbler and a Carolina warbler. Saw this thing. She ran up to me and said, I just saw this, and it was like a difficult thing to describe. It was this big, black, dog-like cat thing. that went running right in front of me and ran into the great unknown area where I was pulling marsh thistles. And I didn't hear it. I mean, I was there when this happened. At the point where it was going to run towards me, nothing. She also said it didn't make any sound, and it was like a dog, but it ran like a cat. And this is from a bird watcher. Okay. About a month later, I had a couple sunsetters. Professionals, professional people. You know, they were in a, I think it was a Lexus. So that should count for something. They went down to watch a sunset. They were all by themselves that night. It was just kind of interesting. A nice sunset. And most people stay 20 minutes, you know, try to stay longer, of course, until I have to flush them out with my grass, referencing another video. But they were up. It was like sunset, boom, they were right there. And I'm opening the gates to release them because I've got a policy. You have to be in the preserve 10 minutes before sunset or you're locked out. Poor planning must be like, you know, punished. They said that they got creeped out because there was this big black thing sitting. And I mentioned this before they fully described it because they didn't want to. They were reluctant, probably for the same reason I was. And I said, I got to tell you something. What I saw, glowing red eyes, and they were like, yeah. They described it as something that you would see in Lord of the Rings. Sitting there, watching them on the edge of the trail, and then got up and ran off without making a sound. They were stumped. They could not discern whether or not it was a dog or a cat. And that is that. I'm going to have some quiet time now. And thank you for sharing this time with me. I truly appreciate it. I know I've whittled my viewership down to maybe about 100 people, but you know, that's cool. We are small in numbers, but we are mighty. This is that. It's probably too dark for you even to see me. I want you to get a good look at me. Why not? I can play around.